Awesome. We are now live on YouTube. Let me just do my video now, then I'll do it off. So today we are here with Charles Wandalo and Dr. Igwe. We are discussing on a debate. We are actually going to be having a debate. We are now live on YouTube. We'll stop something here. There's a feedback audio here. Something here. So I think it's now sorted. Sorry about that. Okay, it's now good. So today we are asking ourselves. We're live on the African Debates channel of YouTube and also here on Zoom. So we're asking ourselves, can the problems in tribalism and politics be addressed by either a Christian worldview or a naturalistic worldview? So together we have Kenyan Christian, Charles Wandalo, who will be also introducing themselves and starting off. Also they're going to be having Dr. Leo Igwe, who is a Nigerian humanist. And we're going to be having a flow where I'll be moderating the timing and also maybe popping in with some questions. And we'll be starting off with Dr. Igwe for 10 minutes. Then we're going to directly go on to Charles for another 10 minutes for the opening statements. So without further ado, let us have Dr. Leo Igwe. Karibu sana, as you say it in Kenya.
Thank you so much, Kevin, and thank you, Charles, for the invitation and for this opportunity to interact with you and audience of viewers out there. It's always a pleasure to begin the interaction between atheists and Christians and Muslims, as the case may be. I hope one day we may have also a Muslim on board to bring their own perspective in terms of how do we move forward, because Africa finds itself in an intersection. The famous African scholar, Ali Mazrui, talked about the triple heritage, talking about the traditional Africa, the Muslim Africa, and of course, the Christian Africa. And I think that the future of this continent, the future of African countries, African democracies are going to be decided by these traditions. But more importantly, I added a fourth tradition, which I call the secular humanist, or you can call it the naturalistic, tradition, which is also very important, which is what I try to push and press today in terms of the topic, which says that can the problems in tribalism and politics be addressed by a Christian or naturalistic worldview. So to really buttress my point, I would like us to take a look at a recent statement made by the Kenyan politician Raila Odinga. He says, there is a colonial ideology in Kenya that elevated Christianity above all other religions. My government will end that. Kenya is a secular society and we will respect all religions. I think that is actually very insightful in trying to understand where we are today in terms of what could be good for the Kenyan society and by extension, the African society. And because too often, religion has made Africans to demean their culture, themselves, to disrespect themselves, to not feel proud of what belongs to them naturally. And that is why I was also happy that my own position is not just atheistic, my own is naturalistic. So it is important that Africans begin going back to themselves, because think about it. Christianity is a foreign religion. Islam is a foreign religion. But over the years, through brainwashing, violence, physical violence, structural violence, demonization of what is African, Africans have imbibed and have internalized their own sense of inferiority. In fact, Africans have turned against themselves. So you see a lot of people look down, for instance, on African traditional systems, religion, politics, because they think that they have a sense of superiority, cultural superiority, moral superiority, political superiority, because they profess Christianity, because they profess Islam. So what we're saying today is that, but where has that led us? Now let's talk about Kenya. Kenya today is dominantly Christian, maybe going by the statistics out there. And then we have the traditionalists and we have the Muslims and all that. So where has it brought Kenya? A lot of, over the years, evangelization, Christian evangelization, Islamization, they have turned African countries now into pseudo-democracies, Christian or Islamic theocracies. So to now ask, what is better for Kenya? Is this Christian? Kenya is Christian already. Yes. So for me, it's a redundant question. We should actually ask ourselves, what has the Christian perspective, what has the Christian worldview, what has the Christian politics brought to Kenya? Where has it brought? Is it not time we begin to look at it? And that is why Raila Odinga's statement is quite insightful. And I think that it answers, the question we have posed today as to what is good. Because there's a need for us to come into the table of equality, come into the table of acknowledging other worldviews, and then asking ourselves, what is good for us? What is good for us as Kenyans? What is good for us as Africans? So my position is that given the ethnic pluralistic nature of Kenya, of Africans, it is important we come with a framework of equality, a framework that consigns religion to the private space, because religion is divisive in itself. So if you continue to push religion further into politics, it will create division, it will exacerbate division, which already exists as a result of our tribal differences. We have different ethnic groups in Kenya, we have different ethnic groups in my country, Nigeria, and many countries are multi-ethnic. Now, what happens is that Christianity is also a form of a tribalistic formation, because it talks about Christians, the good that Christianity can bring. So what it is doing now is trying to exacerbate the ethnic, or what you can call the tribalistic situations. So what we are looking for now should be what some philosophers have called common moral differences, commonalities in terms of what brings Kenyans together. So it's no longer whether you're a Christian or Muslim or even atheist. What brings everybody together so that people can be treated equally? So Christian worldview can only lead us to a Christian theocracy, which of course will alienate the Muslims, alienate non-Christians, and in other words, it will be very divisive. It will be part of the problem. It will not be a solution to the problem. So that is why it is necessary, it is important. We begin to take a look and explore a framework, an inclusive framework. I don't think that Christian view, Christian politics, Christian theocracy is going to be inclusive. It's not going to be inclusive. It will still be divisive. It will still be emphasizing on parochiality. It will still be privileging Christians and Christianity over others. So, and that's not what Kenya needs today. That's not what Africans need today. Because while we continue to talk about our Africanness or African Pan-Africanism, as some people have said it, but these religions have created, their own kind of Africa, Christian Africa, Islamic Africa, and of course, traditionalist Africa. And my country, Nigeria, is a clear example of how this could be a problem. We operate in Nigeria, they operate more or less Muslim theocracies in the north, and in the south, more of Christian theocracies. What do we have? Conflict, tension. Today, in my country, they're asking, is the person, is the president a Muslim, is the vice president a Muslim or not? They are not asking who will, drive the economy, who will make Nigeria function, who will, develop our infrastructure. No, what Nigerians are discussing is, this party, are you fielding Muslim ticket or Christian Muslim ticket? As if these religious tickets are what we really bring good governance. No. So what we're saying here is that it is important that we begin to move away from divisive politics, especially driven by religion. And that tends to exacerbate the tension and conflict in, let's say, in Kenya and also in Nigeria and other parts of Africa. So I continue to say that it is important that Africans shun all these religious political formations and begin to come together under a political framework that is inclusive and that is tolerant, of people, whether they believe or don't believe, whether they belong to a religion or they don't belong to any religion. Thank you.
Over to you, Charles. Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Igwe, for that. And it's always good to have another perspective from another side of Africa. So I'll just share my presentation. Okay, so I have a lot to say, so I'll just dive right into this. Yeah, so like we are trying to talk about, this issue of tribalism and politics in Africa. And there's usually this sentiment that we should not talk about politics or religion because, when you talk about it, it causes division. So it's actually interesting, like what we are even doing, most people will say like, oh, you guys are the purveyors of division, but we want to see whether it's possible to talk about it without being divisive. So I guess I looked at tribalism as a division, the definition as a strong feeling of loyalty to a certain group, ideology, or tribe. I guess that's a stopwatch. Just a sec. I think maybe that could have been from me. Sorry, guys. But yeah, strong feeling of loyalty to a certain group. And so it's not specifically just in the African context, but you can also see it around the world. And so like scripture would talk about it as loving the glory that comes from man rather than the glory that comes from God, And so like I want to look at this issue from a macro perspective, then get to micro. So like there's this issue that some people have thought of. The reason why we have this problem with tribalism is because like Africans have always been tribal, even before the transatlantic slave trade. And so there are those who think that if Africans became more like the West, more organized like the West without tribes and more democratic, that would help. But, and so like we want to see whether that is true. And so like we want to start with the issue of racism and then get to tribalism and politics. And so in the West, we are familiar with the transatlantic slave trade, slavery, Jim Crow, which used notions of race to subjugate Black people. And so like there's this idea, there are those who are thinking that in the West, it was race that was used to subjugate Black people. And then in Africa, it was ethnicity that was used to subjugate Black people, such that colonialism would be easy. And I'm actually thinking that as we continue, we are going to agree with Dr. Igwe on a lot, but also disagree on a lot. So I want to start with ethnic politics in Kenya. So actually, it's rampant all over Africa. And so, for example, we're just about to have an election in Kenya. And so like we find that there's usually this stereotype that if you're of a certain tribe, like one of the majority tribes here, Kikuyu, you'll vote for a Kikuyu man. And so that's what happened in the 2017 elections. And then the running mate was voted for by those who are from his tribe mostly, and then those who are for one of the presidential candidates today, Raila Odinga, are mostly from his tribal group. And so like politics is not about really issues, but about tribes. And so we want to see like what's really going on. So like there are those who are thinking that there's this struggle between the ancient and modern, between Africa's age-old tribal allegiances and its modern political institutions inherited from Europe. So like Africans, some think that there's this identity conflict that Africans are trying to see like, am I Like for example, I'm Luya. Am I more Luya or am I more of a global citizen who's trying to be democratic? And so there's this push and pull, and we're trying to see like, oh, like what should I choose exactly? And so we find that like after independence, there's an elite stratum that emerged in each tribal enclave, and you'll find in most African nations, there are those from a certain tribal group that's the majority who became dominant and started defining either directly or indirectly who is the best and who is the worst. So there are nationalist movements that start out. And so, and this coalition of elites started bringing division amongst various tribes. And so there are those who find that this is the reason why we have a lot of tribalism, but we have exceptions. And so there are those who would be surprised, wow, is this a picture of Tanzania? Yes, this is Dar es Salaam, for those who don't know, the largest city in Tanzania. But we find that in Tanzania, we don't have this problem with tribalism. And it seems like there was this, the German authorities had utilized a literate Swahili community, and it led to a more unified Swahili culture. And they identified so much with their Swahili culture. And then there are those who would claim Julius Nyerere with his Ujamaa politics led to ethnic politics not dominating Tanzania. And we also have Senegal. So here we have Senegal, where voters do not vote along ethnic lines. And their colonialists who would have wished that would have happened, but there's a Sufi brotherhood that opposed this. So there seems to be this identity, religious identity, that ensured that this tribal politics does not take root in some African nations. So we're just discussing here and trying to see like what's going on. So in the West, we find Black people are racialized. In Africa, they are tribalized. And so like this is an issue that is actually affecting us, and to the extent that we're not even coming together as Black people. And so ethnic politics, being a result of ancient tribal affiliations in Africa that have resisted modernization, is wrong-headed, because we have at least seen Senegal and Tanzania don't have ethnic politics. So there seems to be something more complicated going on in our continent. So there are usually solutions that are usually given sometimes, that we should just have increased literacy, increased urbanization, voters should be educated, and we'll deal with all these problems with politics and tribalism. But could this be misguided? Because we have, for example, in Kenya, where I guess I'm more familiar with what's going on, there is ethnic tension amongst people in universities, people with PhDs, well-paid professionals. We find that they will hate someone from another tribal group, despite the fact that they might be even more educated than me. And so the question is, what's going on? These solutions of increased literacy not helping? And so there's this question about, to tackle the problem of ethnic politics, countries where this dominates must reimagine the political system in such as a way as to dismantle ethnic privilege and deprivation and build a new system no longer based on winners and losers. And so I think this is something interesting, and some people will talk about it as critical theory, whereby there are those who are oppressed and those who are oppressors. And so people always see that, oh, my tribe is either oppressed or oppressing someone. And and there are those who now would say the ethnic elites have driven that narrative amongst many African nations. And so this is something that probably we could discuss further. But now we are wondering, is it possible to have reconciliation along issues to do with politics, tribe, and race? It would be very great to have this picture here that I'm showing you common, everywhere we go, but unfortunately it's not. Like when we see a Chinese person, when we see an Indian person or a white person, we already feel like, that's what they are. Is it really possible? I think this is a question that I'll probably ask more later on, but we talk about Black Lives Matter and all these things, or maybe Luya Lives Matter, Nigerian Lives Matter, but why do any lives actually matter? That's the question we never answer. And I think that I might probably touch on that more on a rebuttal maybe. But I was interested in finding out a certain geneticist from Ghana. I think we don't celebrate our own that much. He's Dr. Felix Konoti Ahulwa. And he was trying to recommend a certain book written to talk about how we are on one human family, which I think not only deals with the issue of racism, but also tribalism. And the book is called One Human Family. And he was just commenting about how it is the best in-depth account of racism he has ever read, and information that will surprise, if not amaze, most readers. And so he talks about how this book, written by a guy called Carl Wieland, was talking about how like we are one human family, how it was talking about, first of all, how the Bible shows that we're one human family, but then also the science of genomics currently shows that there's very little differentiation amongst races. And obviously, and if there's little differentiation amongst races, how much more tribes, you know? So I want to talk a little bit about Darwinism and how much it could probably contribute sometimes to biases. And so like there's this documentary called The Voyage That Shook the World. And so there's this historian who says by the time Charles Darwin wrote The Descent of Man, so Charles Darwin helped to formulate the origin of species by means of natural selection. And so in his book, The Descent of Man, it's pretty clear that by the time he shares the growing suspicion or conviction of many Europeans, that so many Europeans during that time had the idea of non-white races simply not having the capacity to be elevated properly into civilized human beings, stuck at some stage in biological evolution. So it seems there are people who are influenced by naturalistic evolution to think of some people as inferior. And so like there's this guy called Otto Benga. This guy was actually an African pygmy who was actually taken to America in a zoo, and he shared a cage with an orangutan because some racist white people actually thought that he's just, he's closer to the orangutan than maybe a white person. And so he was placed in a zoo, if you can even believe that. And so it seems like naturalistic evolution, similar to social Darwinism, brought about this, at least promoted racism, and we can say by extension tribalism. And so an interesting thing that we could talk about when we think about Christianity, we find that one of the greatest, if not one of the only anti-slavery advocates, William Wilberforce, was actually a Christian, the guy who helped abolish the slave trade in Britain, and he believed that all men were created equal and in the image of God. And I feel like on atheism, we cannot really talk about people being equal because there's no image of God to even talk about. And so maybe that's something we need to talk about. So like from a biblical perspective, we find, so this is a biblical perspective on what the problem is with politics and, one more minute. So we have, there's the falling of mankind, and then nations were scattered because of in the Tower of Babel. And that's why we have different nations scattered around the world. And we have the stumbling of Israel, and then the gathering of the nations, all nations, tribes being gathered. And then there's the coming of the King of Kings, that is Jesus. And so there's also a practical perspective to think about how we need to acknowledge and submit to political government, so that right now, even in Kenya, as we're waiting for the elections, we know whoever comes in, God allowed him. And so we submit, but we don't engage in political idolatry. So as a Christian, I will not be more committed to a particular political party more than my commitment to God, but I can commit to political activity, where we see an example like Joseph. He engaged in political activity. We should be sensitive to other people who do not subscribe to our worldview, while sharing why we don't. So that sensitivity, and also we'll fulfill our political responsibilities like paying taxes, as scripture tells us. And so we also need to have this eternal perspective whereby we know God is in control. And this helps us to not go insane, like if a certain tribe attacks us or a certain political party, we know God is in control. Our true citizenship is in the kingdom. And so I will not attack someone from another tribe or from another political party because this is not my home. I'm just passing through. I'm like a pilgrim. And so it helps me to reconfirm my mission. So this eternal perspective, which lacks from the atheist perspective, I feel prevents the atheist perspective from helping us. But it's interesting. There's this lady called Ashley Miller, who is a polemicist. And I see that my time is up. So I'm just going to rush. So this polemicist, Ashley Miller, is actually an atheist who was actually talking about how it's possible for an atheist to be tribal. And she was talking about how there are mass shooters in the US who are actually atheists. They were actually targeting Christians, for example, in churches. And so like she was trying to say that this tribalism thing that is usually accused of against religious people is also possible amongst atheists. And it's important for atheists to have honest discussions about how all groups can be influenced by some sort of tribalism and try to attack another group. And so like there are these attitudes that we need to avoid, this loving political party is more important on winning, or the spirited political debates, pride, patriotism, an attitude of us versus them. These are attitudes we need to avoid. And the question is not whose side is God on. For example, there are Kenyans who are asking, whose party is God supporting? No, the question is, are we on God's side? Because God is not about our political party or our tribe. And so this picture was interesting because it shows me how kids don't even understand racism like we do. But now, like from a biblical perspective, as I had mentioned earlier, maybe I'll not spend too much time here, like there's this idea of one race coming from, and that's why I think the issue of coming from Adam and Eve is important, because it shows the Nigerian, the Kikuyu, the Luo, the white person all come from Adam and Eve. And so that the solution is to acknowledge that racism and tribalism are a sin that can be dealt with when we turn from that sin and turn to God via the cross, which is the only way to be made right, not by our works. And I feel when we believe that and we practice that, then it is going to remove all the animosity brought about by politics and tribalism. And so those are the references from where I got some of my information. And I guess from the recording, you might get it. And that is my presentation. Thanks for listening. Sorry, I took a bit longer than I should have.
Thank you so much, Charles, for that. I think I'll now put Dr. Igwe onto the spotlight so that they're there. So Dr. Igwe will start cross-examining Charles' opening statement. And then after 5 minutes, you'll automatically switch roles and not intervene. So right now it's time for cross-examination for the next 10 minutes. Welcome.
Okay. Yeah, Charles, thanks so much for your own perspective. But I still want you to reply to Raila Odinga. Yes, he said, he's quoted to have said, because we just got that quotation online here, and that Christianity is a colonial ideology. So are you happy with that? Do you think it is the case? If you think it's not the case, why are you pushing a colonial ideology down the throat of Kenyans? That's one. Number two.
Or could I respond? To that one? And then, yeah, and then so
okay.
that all right. So I would actually maybe refute that and say that it's actually not a colonial ideology, because we did have Christians in Africa way before colonization started. And so that's probably the subject of a longer debate. But we did have Christians in North Africa, like St. Augustine. We had Christians in Egypt, like Athanasius. We had Christians in Ethiopia, like King Ezana. We had even Christians by Mansa Musa, who was talking about Christians being in Mali around 1000 AD, 1100 AD. So we did have Christians in the continent before colonialism.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that when he's referring to Christianity and colonialism, he's just referring to just the recent one. Yeah, he was referring to what I call the recent colonialism. I know that Christianity has been in Africa for much more longer, but it came with its own politics, just like Islam came with its own politics. Now, the politics of Christianity looks down on our own traditional politics. So is that what you're saying? Should we still continue to relate to this idea that we should not be proud in our own sense of politics without the layer of Christianity? Is that what you're saying?
I guess maybe we could look at that issue in different ways. We could look at it in the sense of, we could even look at Christianity as African, such that Christian politics is Africans, because we have this history of politics in Ethiopia. And so, but on top of that, we can also look at the idea that Christianity would celebrate African politics that is awesome, like African politics that promoted the cohesiveness of the community. Christianity in Psalm 133 says, how blessed is it when brothers come together in unity. And so Christianity would celebrate that, but Christianity would not affirm any politics that would promote harm. For example, we had African politics that promoted maybe female genital mutilation, for example. I'm just thinking about that. And so like Christianity would deny that, would say, no, that should not be done. Even if it was done by some Africans, that harms somebody and it harms an image bearer. But I think also on top of that, I would say on atheism, we do not even have a foundation to even say which one is better, because on atheism, we would just be like meaningless molecules in motion, such that there is no really better or worse, since we are just, we have no purpose.
Yeah, but I guess I will respond to that when you start, asking. So you are saying here now that, for instance, look at Abraham, what Abraham did. Is that what you are commending, that people should sacrifice their child based on some imaginary communication with a being that we actually don't know, whether it's effectively communicating with anybody? Is that what you are saying? That's number one. Number two, are you also saying that example of Jesus as a son sacrificed by the Father in order to redeem the world, is that because human sacrifice is central, to Christian political philosophy? Is that the kind of thing you are recommending for Kenyans? A philosophy based on people sacrificing their children as a result of some imaginary revelation or communication with an entity that has nothing to do with our everyday life, but apparently sits somewhere else and is telling us to kill our child or send his son, from a questionable parentage. We don't know exactly the father of the person they said as the savior of the world. Is that the kind of principle you want Kenyan politics to be based, and you think is better off than something founded on common moral decencies?
I would say, actually, those were a couple of questions. I'll try to summarize the response. So I would say that your concerns are presupposing there's this objective moral values and duties that need to define how we live our life. And I feel that can only be grounded on an objective moral lawgiver, God. So I feel like on atheism, there's even no basis to be against any sacrifice at all, because Abraham, his son, Jesus are supposed to just be meaningless molecules in motion. So on atheism, there's nothing wrong or right about sacrifice. But to directly address the question, we find that Jesus in the book of Hebrews offered one sacrifice for all. And he was trying to show that there was only one perfect sacrifice that could be performed by someone who was innocent. He took upon himself the weight, the sin of political strife and tribalism. He took upon himself so that we don't have to. And so I think this is actually a good foundation for our politics, because if we would have politicians who are not interested in dividing tribes and stealing money, but who are more interested in sacrificing. So for Mark 10:45, for even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. If they wanted to serve, I think we would have better politics and we would have people who love. So for example, Jesus forgave the people who wanted to kill him on the cross. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. If we had more of that amongst our tribes, we wouldn't have people killing one another because of tribes. So I feel the Christian position is the only one that can help us come up with a solution.
Yeah, but and do you think that the Christians in Kenya are not doing enough? That is why this politics has not reflected. Because I'm asking myself, Kenya is majority, from what I have read on statistics, Christians, yeah? So what happens to the politics you're saying? Are we still going to expect another wave of Christianity in Kenya for what you're saying to materialize? And if it has not been materialized, it means that what you are saying is either not useful or does not relate to Christianity as Kenyans understand that.
That's a good question. And I guess maybe a short response is Jesus said, not everyone who calls him Lord will enter the kingdom, but those who do the will of my Father, meaning those who are not obeying Jesus are proving they are not Christians. So that means the statistic that most people in Kenya are Christians is actually a false statistic, according to Jesus, since it's the standard of Christianity. Because those who are, the Bible says in 1 John, if you do not love God, if you do not love your brother whom you have seen, how can you love God whom you have not seen? So the reality from a biblical perspective is that most people in Kenya are not Christian. But still, I would emphasize that on atheism, there is no meaningful ground to object to anything that a Christian does or doesn't do, because one is left with this ultimately meaningless universe whereby there's no way things should or should not be.
No, I'm not going to I will respond when my time comes, when it comes to atheism, but it is your, now you've been quoting the scripture a couple of times. Let me quote one for you now. 2 Corinthians 6:14. Do not yoke unequally with non-believers. So central to what you're saying is that Kenya should have a political philosophy that discriminates against those who do not believe in Jesus. Is that what you're saying? Number two, John 14:16 says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, and nobody can come to the Father except through me. So are you saying that Kenyans who do not believe in Jesus are damned? And if you are using that as a political philosophy, how do you think you are less tribalistic? How do you think you are less divisive than the tribalistic politics you are contesting?
I guess it is important to see that Christian exclusivism does not mean that you hate someone. So it's the same as you can say that in a nation, you are exclusive of thieves, or theft is not something to be encouraged, but that doesn't mean that you hate the individual. You're just telling them that there's a particular standard required to meet, acceptance in our community. In other words, what you're saying is that in the same as in a court of law, when someone has broken a command and they have a bond they need to pay, that they have to pay the bond. They can't just say, oh, you need to be more fair, you need to be more open-minded. The judge has to obey certain laws. In the same way, God, who is just, must punish sin. And so he has provided a way for that debt to be paid. And so if you try to deal with the debt in any other way, then it is not going to be able to work. But but actually Christians are motivated by love to share this message to unbelievers. It's not out of hatred.
Yeah, but it's quite condescending for you to, because you are also an unbeliever. Because if you call me unbeliever, you are also an unbeliever, because there are also things I see hold and I espouse you do not believe. So how dare you call me an unbeliever when you are also an unbeliever? And is that the kind of politics of inclusiveness you are going to, put in place in Kenya, when it will be founded on you as the believer and me as an unbeliever?
Oh, and so it seems it's almost my time to ask questions also, but I'll answer this question and then I'll start asking questions. Yeah. So as I said, the second greatest commandment by Jesus is love your neighbors yourself. And so there's no basis for any Christian to hate someone that disagrees with them. And so as I was saying, it is possible to share the message, as you can find Jesus was able to share a message that was exclusive and still forgive his enemies. And I think it's only in Christianity that can be done. But on atheism, as I keep on, and maybe now when I start asking questions, we have no basis for how we can even ground objective moral values or whatever maybe you would espouse. So maybe I could start my questions now.
Okay.
Okay, so that we don't take so much time, I'll try to do it in 5 minutes. And so I guess I was wondering, I'm grateful that you're keeping up with Kenyan politics. I guess I just wanted to ask, so on atheism, what Raila said about not elevating other races above other religions, above others, Christianity above Muslims or Hindus, did you find that elevation is objectively wrong, or is it just an opinion of our society that is a wrong thing to do?
Well, the fact there is that statement is not my statement. It's a statement by a Kenyan and a Kenyan politician. And a Kenyan politician who is aspiring to the highest office, in Kenya. So, and I believe that he's informed. He knows what he's talking about in terms of the fact that Christianity is privileged. And if the privileging of Christianity in Kenya resonated positively with Kenyans, resonated with the kind of politics of equality, politics of inclusiveness, he's at least espousing based on what he said, I don't think he would have made that statement. So that is why I think that he has made an informed statement, and by making it a promise, it means that he has acknowledged the harm, the misfit, the disconnect in the elevation of Christianity within the political terrain of Kenyans. So what I'm trying to say, that having made that acknowledgement, is a way of refuting this idea that a Christian political worldview is better for Kenyans. He has already said it. It's a colonial thing. The privilege has to be abolished. Equality is what should be. All the beliefs, all the religions should be treated equally according to him. Because, you know why? Because all Kenyans are equal. Yes, whether they espouse Christianity or Islam or Hindu or atheism or humanism or agnosticism, however you want it, he is coming from a position of equality of all Kenyans. So that's actually the message he's trying to send. And on that principle, I think I agree with him.
And Dr. Igwe, don't you feel like you would have to become a Christian in order to properly object to discrimination of other religions? Because on your position, like, people are just accidents of the universe and ultimately meaningless. And when they die, it won't even matter how they were treated. So don't you think on atheism, there's really no basis to say that people should be treated justly, and that you need to become a Christian to believe in objective moral values and duties from a moral lawgiver, so that you can be able to actually have a good ground to argue against someone who is discriminating?
Yeah, I think there are so many issues you are merging, and you are merging and a kind of morphing together in what you just said. First of all, atheism is all about the view that there's no God. Atheists don't have idea that's the view that God is not there. The God idea is imaginary. It's just something we made up by ourselves. Okay. And what you actually saying here confirms that whether it is Christianity, whether it is God, is something we made up. We wrote the Bible. You keep quoting this Bible. I wanted to ask you, who wrote this Bible? That English there you are quoting, whose English? Is it God's English? Does God speak English? So it is our making, okay? But what happens is that religion has a way of demeaning the human in order to elevate the superhuman. And that is where religion has been a problem to humankind. And that is why you see Abraham ready to sacrifice the son. And that is why they're telling us that Jesus, with a questionable parentage, we don't know who is the father actually, because we know that angels are spirits. They cannot, sleep with a woman and get pregnant and all that. So, and a woman gets pregnant. So what we're saying is that, as a result of this demeaning of the human, including your sense of reasoning, your sense of logic, your sense of coherence. Like if I tell you now that, look, I was born by a virgin, you will contest it. You get it? And I will not be able to even to take part in election or in politics. If somebody asked me, I said, my father was God, my mother was a virgin. No, but because it is religion, you will suspend your sense of scientific thinking and evidence-based thinking because it is religion. That is the damage religion has done, not just to Africans, but to many places around the world. And by extension, that's the damage it has done to politics. And that's why somebody could come today and say, look, God called me to lead Kenyans. And you see people vote for the person. They won't ask the person, what is your credential? What is your experience? What are you bringing? How are you going to, translate into practical, measurable ways what you tend to do for the people of Kenya? So what I'm saying is that there's a whole misunderstanding of atheism, and it is so evident in your statements and allusions. Look, we are saying there's no evidence. We are here. We just found ourselves here. Let's make the best of this life. How do you object to it? And if you so strongly believe that there is a God, why not allow that God to come and lead Kenyans? Why are you voting for Raila Odinga? Why are you voting for Uhuru? Why are you voting for human beings when you really believe there is an active God that can lead you? Why is it that this person we keep talking about cannot come out and do something? We keep talking and talking. We don't believe in him. We believe in him, and all that. And you are still so strongly think that what he says, does he say anything? You say he's a moral giver. Who told you? Where did he give you the moral thing? Those things you are calling codified in the Bible were written by human beings who lived thousands of years ago. And today, we are more informed than them. And you people are still insisting, because of that religious distortions, that we should be guided by moral codes, written over 1,000 years ago, that we should not base it on what we think today. That is unfortunate. And that's the kind of politics you people want to espouse. And that is why it is retrogressive. And it is not compatible with progress and development, not just for Kenya, but for Africa as a whole.
Okay, actually had more questions, but it seems my cross-examination is up, I think. Is that true, Kevin? I think,
yes, it ended like 2 minutes ago, yes.
Yeah, so so that we don't take too much time, I think we can just go straight to rebuttal, because I have much more to say during the rebuttal. So the rebuttal is 5 minutes, so I guess maybe Dr. Igwe can do the next 5 minutes of rebuttal, and then I will do my 5 minutes of rebuttal.
Sure.
Well, I think that I have actually included my rebuttals in my questions and all that. So, but I might take it up from there. Now, in your statement, you were making reference to Senegal. You were making reference to Senegal. And you are trying to push a Christian political philosophy as better for Kenya and Africa. Is Senegal a Christian nation? Senegal is majority Muslim. And I want to tell you that for Muslims, Christ is an inferior prophet. And the book you are making reference to is an inferior book. So I was like wondering why you are using Senegal to make an illustration or make an example when you are pushing a Christian political position. The same thing with Tanzania, with the little I have read, and I know about Tanzania, I don't think that that country is dominantly Christian, but I stand to be corrected. So that's one. Number two, you are trying to present the Christian religion as something, a kind of a view that as value is better than the tribalistic notion. Christian identity is a tribalistic identity. Because it refers to the Christian tribe. That is why, let me give you an example. In Nigeria, that should be about a month ago or so, Muslims, a young Christian lady made a comment on WhatsApp group that they said maybe insulted Prophet Muhammad. He's from the same Hausa-speaking area in Nigeria, but that didn't stop the Muslims. The classmates went, dragged her out, clubbed her to death, set the cops ablaze. They didn't do that based on tribalistic sentiment. They did that based on religious sentiments. So what I'm trying to say here now is that religion, at least when it comes to Nigeria, can inspire more vicious and horrific sentiments. So I don't know why you are trying to elevate it as if it is, it may be better or not as vicious as what you are calling, the tribal sentiments. Lastly, when you say people are, when you go by the tribal ethnic thing, people vote for people from the same ethnic group, like the Kikuyu, or Kikuyus will vote for Kikuyus, Luos will vote for Luos and all that. But the same thing, Christians will vote for Christians. Yeah. So I don't see really any value, Christianity will add politically when it comes to what you call the problem of politics and politics and the tribalism or ethnicism, as the case may be. Maybe I leave it at that for now.
Okay, Kevin, I can proceed with my rebuttal.
Please do, please do. Thank you.
Oh yeah, so I guess I'll try to do 5 minutes, and I guess after that is Q&A. So yeah, thanks, Dr. Igwe, for that rebuttal. So I actually have so much to say, I don't know how I'll say it. So let me just go as quickly as I can. So I want to start with my presentation. So like, as far as my presentation is concerned, I didn't see much of objection to what I said, but I think I had something on Tanzania and Senegal being like Muslim. But remember, the issue was not to say that they are Christians, so that's why there's no ethnic politics. What I was trying to say that there are people who like think it's like Western imperialism that will help our democracy. So that was the argument. That was not, there was no argument about Christian politics. In fact, I've not even made a case for Christian politics at all, really. At least not much. So let me see where we disagree. So like I asked a question about why any life matters. And maybe we can talk about this more in the questions, because I don't think on atheism, and this is something that has not been addressed, if God doesn't exist, we are just accidents, ultimately meaningless. And when we die, like I could get COVID right now and die. It won't even really matter whether we had this discussion. No, if on atheism. And so does any life really matters? And if no life really matters on that perspective, since we are meaningless molecules in motion, so what really are the objections? I feel like this issue hasn't been addressed, and maybe we can get to it more a bit later. I don't think any other thing was touched on my presentation. So there was this issue that maybe Dr. Igwe could address later on, where there's this atheist, Ashley, who was talking about how there are some people who are unbelievers who go about shooting people in churches in the US, And so it seems it is possible for unbelievers to actually attack religious people. So I think it's important for us to have these well-nuanced conversations to admit that it's possible to be biased on both sides. But now, all I'm saying is that the Christian position actually says the bias would be unfounded because the Christian religion was founded on the dying of someone who was killed by his enemies while still loving for them. So I will try to go through other issues. So the issue about, there was this idea of Christianity might be false, but I'm just wondering, have we been shown that naturalism is true? Can naturalism explain why there is a universe, why we actually have consciousness? There's this hard problem of consciousness, and why we live like we have meaning. The origin of language. There are even issues in evolution, like with the origin of language, for example, or origin of multicellular organisms. So there are many issues of which naturalism is insufficient to explain the complexity of our existence. But on Christianity, we have creation and design with something like DNA. We have objective moral laws and duties with our conscience, whereby we feel strongly that Muslims should not be discriminated against. Atheists should not be discriminated against. We feel strongly, even the atheist does, but if we are just meaningless molecules in motion, on what basis should someone not discriminate? Like, where does obligation come from? You see? And so Christianity makes a case for the creator, designer, moral lawgiver, who has a standard we cannot meet, hence the savior. This is why Christianity is truth. So I quote the Bible. And then the Bible shows me, wow, love my neighbor as myself. It helps me solve the problem. It explains why reality is the way it is, helps me to solve the problem. So I feel like maybe the question is, why is naturalism true? I would like to say it is false. And so I think we had issues about the tension in Nigeria. Actually, it saddened me about that girl being killed for her Christian views. And my prayer is that we may have more conversations like this instead of having people killing one another. Like right now, we are disagreeing with Dr. Igwe, but we are discussing. I'm not planning to kill him, or he's not planning to kill me. I'm hoping, if nothing else is concluded in this live stream, but that we learn we can be able to disagree and still love one another. We are talking about having these common moral dispenses, but now on atheism, what is the basis? Like if Hitler, or should I say Boko Haram, is to come today and say they don't think that Christian girl should have remained living. Like, on what basis do we object if we are just meaningless molecules in motion? There's no obligation for Boko Haram to love their neighbors if they're just meaningless molecules in motion. But on Christianity, since both Boko Haram and the atheist and the girl are created in God's image, there's an obligation to love our neighbor. And so I feel all the accusations against Christianity are actually turning out to be arguments for Christianity. And so there's no Christian who should be trying to say that they're superior to anyone, because they realize that they are a sinner saved by grace. And I think we also addressed the issue of Kenya being dominantly Christian. So no true Christian actually believes that, because we see there's a lot of corruption and immorality and tribalism promoted by many Kenyans. But Christians in the Bible are not supposed to do that according to 1 John. And that is why many true believers in Kenya believe Kenya is actually mostly unbelieving. It's just people are hypocrites. And that's maybe something we can talk about later. So I think the idea of Christianity being a foreign religion, that one now we've just done away with, because it's not true. We've had Christianity in Africa for 2,000 years, in Ethiopia, in Egypt, in North Africa, in Mali. Like, we could talk about it. So the idea of Christianity being a foreign religion, I think even Dr. Igwe agreed with me that Christianity
No. Oh. It's been here for a long time, but it was introduced from outside. Whether it's 1,000 years ago or whatever, it was introduced from outside. It was not originally from here. Yes. When Christianity started, some people brought it, But the first wave of Christianization could not, reach, of course, the sub-Saharan Africa. It was a second wave, or what you call the later wave of Christianization. That's the one that brought it. So I still insist it's a foreign religion,
Okay, I'm actually tempted to say that atheism is what is foreign to Christians, but that's probably we can talk about that a bit more later. But I just want to finish my rebuttal by talking about how Christianity is not brainwashing, because it's the same way Dr. Igwe could raise his kids as atheists, and I wouldn't say it's brainwashing. So that if they turn out as atheists, it's because they've chosen. And so one can give positions. In fact, God says, "Come and reason with me." Come and reason, Isaiah chapter 1. And I think now I am taking too much time, so I will end my rebuttal here. And maybe just insist on the fact that naturalism doesn't give us any reason to believe that we have objective moral values and duties, but just opinions of meaningless molecules in motion. And I think that should worry us, especially if we want to see Africa change long term, and we want people to believe that they're just meaningless molecules in motion. So I leave it at that, and I think we can get into Q&A, but I leave Kevin to guide us there.
Sure. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. and also Charles, for such an insightful session of opening statements, of cross-examination, and also rebuttals. Now we're heading on to Q&A. And maybe if you also if you're here on the Zoom call and you'd like to ask a question, you can either post it on the chat or maybe raise your hand so that you can be given an opportunity to unmute and maybe ask your question. Also, we are also live on our African Debates channel. Also, if you're there, you can also post it on the live chat and we'll be able to look at that. So maybe to kick off the question and answer session, I'll be having a question for each of you to answer, as you also get the participants to participate in this. So my first question will be to Charles. There's this issue of money and especially during political season, the electioneering period, and you see politicians coming in and say, yes, we're going to support project. They're going to build this altar or finish up the church that had stalled, and so on and so forth. And maybe as the clergy, and I also saw, I think, in this still electioneering period, there was a time when there was a forum where it was written, the news was saying the clergy have endorsed Raila Odinga. It is something that was there in the public domain, and we saw a huge number of people, and there was this, I think you saw that. And the first question on the first part of money is, are the clergy supposed to vet the source of money, where did the money come from, proceeds of corruption, before they accept it or not? Are the clergy supposed to endorse one contestant or one aspirant over the other? Like, what should be the role of the church or the clergy as the leadership of the church in the Christian setup in this political and electioneering season, as you answer that? And now for Dr. Leo, what is the role of atheists or naturalists in a political season? Should it be the stance of, I don't know, I should not take sides? Like, what should be the position, and what should be the advice? Is a naturalistic view one that can promote peace over a Christian one? And if so, how would it be able to do that and achieve that? I think that would be a good start off on our question. Maybe you can start with Charles.
Right. Thanks, Kevin. And I think it is really unfortunate when clergy accept money. And I don't know, maybe I guess this is also common in Nigeria. Maybe Dr. Igwe can tell us. But it is very unfortunate when politicians come to church to give clergy money, because there's no biblical precedent for that. There is no one in the Old Testament or the New who was trying to get on the good side of kings so that they can get money. In fact, those who did were rebuked by God for being, for betraying God. And so what we find in the Old, we find Prophet Elijah, objecting to King Ahab and objecting to him and saying that, oh, you are not a good ruler and I rebuke you, And we have Jesus having the audacity to tell Pilate, you have no authority over me unless God gives you. So that's true Christianity. And that's why I'm saying most of the Christianity we are seeing in our continent is just that, not Christianity, right? It's actually not Christianity. It has nothing to do with the scriptures. And then when you find somebody endorsing a candidate and giving them some robes to dress in, what we find in Leviticus 10, Nadab and Abihu, offering strange fire and being burnt on the altar, God only wanting the priests who have been consecrated to be there. And so what we find is that we need clergy who know that their goal, as much as those who preach the gospel live by the gospel, we are not supposed to accept bribes, and at the same time, we're not supposed to endorse someone who's clearly engaging in unbiblical practices. We can endorse someone whom we see has good policies or who can promote God's agenda, and God's agenda means loving unbelievers too. We have to emphasize that. And so we do not have any biblical precedent for clergy accepting money or favors from politicians or endorsing politicians who are obviously engaging in unbiblical activities. So that's what I would say.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Dr. Any question?
Yeah, the thing is this. I just want to take off from if clergy don't accept money, how will they feed? God does not feed them. Yes, the manna fell from heaven. That was in the Bible, but not today. They need to feed. They need to take care of their bills. When they get sick, they need to go to hospital. How will they pay their hospital bills? How will they train their families? Some of the clergy, they have families. They're married. So if they don't get money from the people, whether politicians or non-politicians, how do you want them, to take care of their of the day-to-day needs. So, yeah, so in addition, I have to respond to the issue of whether atheism and naturalism, whether they have any kind of political program. The answer is yes, they do. We have what we call, we promote secularism, yes. And secularism is this notion that church and state should be separated. We promote democracy, the will of the people, not the will of God. We do not. The will of God is the will of God, and it rules where God lives, not where it is our will. So the thing there is that there's a whole lot of confusion with your notion of, oh, God as a moral giver, the politicians to implement the will of God. How do you know the will of God? How will Raila Odinga know the will of God? How? And all that. And you are saying it here that many Kenyans are not practicing real Christianity. Where is this your real Christianity? Is it a figment of your mind or what? So for us, atheists, we don't bring in God into politics, because God is something that is not needed. Politics is for human beings. And that's why we talk about the will of the people, not the will of angels, not the will of God. So I don't know the will you people want to implement in Kenya. You want to implement the will of God instead of the will of the people. So the politics of us who do not acknowledge the existence of God is that we are true Democrats. We want the politics we espouse to be founded on the will of the people, the needs of the people, the rights of the people, the progress and interests of the people.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Doc. And okay, is there any question on the live? Let me check on the YouTube. Okay, in a few, just let me check on this. None from that end. So anyone on the Zoom who would like to ask a question? Karanja, James, Misty, if you have a question, you can also chime in here. Okay,
yeah,
as the
question.
Please go on. Thank you.
My question will go to the Dr. Leo. I would like to know if you have a problem with tribalism or not.
Okay. Do I have a problem with tribalism? The thing is that, look, human beings, have tried to organize themselves in so many ways, in families, no, I'm sorry, there's a power cut here. So even if I turn on my video, you will not see me.
Oh yeah, that's okay. Yeah, we actually figured it. It's okay.
Yeah. So it is useless if I turn on my video. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying here now is that human beings have tried to organize themselves in certain ways, and organizing people organizing themselves by tribes is just like one of those ways. Who speaks the same kind of language, who has certain marks sometimes, certain customs, certain beliefs, certain ways of dressing. Like when you come when you come to Kenya, you have the Kikuyus, you have the Maasai. If I'm wrong, you correct me. And you have so many people, you see that they have different lifestyles. That's how people try to organize themselves. So if I should say, tribes are naturalistic. Those are ways people try to organize themselves. But what happens is that we are no longer isolated tribes here and there living on our own. We are coming together now, like in Kenya. So where it becomes a problem is that when we try to use those ethnic groups as a basis to hate or discriminate against the other, that's where there's a problem. Like now, I don't see whatever, I'm a Nigerian, and in Nigeria, I'm Igbo, okay? What I need is what you need, Charles. You need a power. Like now, I need electricity. You can see, you are not seeing me now. I'm seeing you. You get it? I need that. You know, you need basics. You need money. You need shelter. You need clothing. You need to be happy. You need healthcare. That's what I need. It is not what my tribe needs. It's what I need as a human being. So, but organizing people as ethnic groups and tribes and clans, that's how people try to take care of themselves at a certain stage. But today, we are more connected with each other. So when you are trying to espouse, in quote, what you call tribalism in a multi-tribal or ethnic society like Kenya or Nigeria, it creates a problem. So that is where I have a problem with that issue. When you want to make it at the basis of love, hate, vote, not vote, marry, not marry, relate, not relate, that's where I have a problem. So otherwise, it's natural that people try to speak their own language, eat their own kind of food, dress. There's pleasure people derive in living with people who also look like them or resemble them. But more importantly, today we need to go beyond the tribe and also relate with people who don't look like us, but who are human beings also. Understanding that at the earlier part of human existence, these ethnic tribal organizations were necessary for human organization and human survival.
Thank you, Doc. Any question also? Maybe Charles, do you have a reaction to Dr.'s response?
I guess maybe I could say it is possible for the atheists to be against tribalism, and we've seen Dr. Igwe is. But now my position would be because he is created in God's image and God's law is written in his heart. So I do expect atheists to be moral and to be against tribalism. The only problem is that he would not be able to account on naturalism or on atheism why tribalism is good or bad. Because like on atheism and tribalism and naturalism, we are nothing more than just meaningless molecules in motion that will eventually disintegrate. So like, I think that's really the biggest issue. I think if we really want to deal with political strife and tribalism in this continent, we need a worldview that is true, that can actually account for why the universe is the way it is, but that gives people hope of like hope in this life and in the next, such that even if I find a political opponent or a tribal enemy, if I may put it that way, who is against me, I can still love them because I know in this life, I will be rewarded by God and also in the next, whether things turn out for me well or not. You know, I can love an enemy who is from a different tribe and I suffer, but I still know in the eternal perspective, everything is okay. But on atheism, like it is what it is, unfortunately. But on Christianity, that's not the case. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I don't want Charles to go away with the same prejudice, the same misconception that he has been recycling and rehashing, singing and chorusing all this while. First of all, I have said it. Charles, as a Christian, what you need is what I need. Yes. Basic human rights, basic needs. That's what I need. In this life, I am not, you know, as an atheist, we are only disagreeing when it comes to idea of God. And I don't see God around here. Is God online? Hello? Is God online? Okay, he's not. He's not even online. God cannot even hook up. Whether they have electricity, just like I don't have now, you know, and all that. God can't even take part in any debate. But we keep hitting ourselves, attacking ourselves, killing ourselves for a being that cannot effectively communicate with us. So that's number one. And number two, oh, our lives are meaningless. Who told you? We give the meaning to our lives. We human beings give our lives meaning. Yes. So when you saying your life is meaningless, that is you. But if you think your life is meaningless because you believe in somebody that died, I don't know. Charles, how are you comfortable believing in somebody that died? Maybe we don't even know whether the guy existed, actually, you know, but you have been told because it's written in a book. You believe that book, you don't question it. You believe in it. So what I'm saying here is that This is what we are rehashing here, the same prejudices that are spreading over the years. We are atheists are saying we don't see any view for the existence of Allah, Christ God, what do you call it? All this, the Vishnu, the Hindu gods. We don't have the traditional gods. We don't have this view. And the most important thing is that let's make the best of this life. We are talking about afterlife. What of before life? Where were you, Charles? Where were you? So if you are talking about where you are going, where are you coming from? Yes, where are you coming from? And for this, you keep attacking atheists. Atheists are telling you, look, but where we are coming from, where we are going, we don't know. But we are here now. Can we make the best out of it? It is not meaningless. It is as meaningful as it can be. Because for me, as an atheist, I want to live the best of this life. I want to have the best of life. I don't want somebody to shorten my life because the person is a religious fanatic. And we have many of them in Nigeria today. If you make a comment, they go and attack and kill you because you said something about their God. And they keep bashing you every day. Psalm 14 verse 1. Charles, what is written there? A fool has said in his heart, there is no God. If I say today, a fool has said in his heart, Jesus is the God, how will you feel about it? Okay, so what I'm saying there is that you guys give it, but you don't take it. But we're saying, whether you are ready to take it or not, we are here together and we have to make we give our lives meaning. And that is why for us, atheists, we want to make the best out of this one life we have. Is there another life? There is no evidence for that. So why are you bothering yourself with another life when you have not finished living this one? Yes. Why are you trying to use your notion of the next life to shorten this life? That's what Muslim fanatics are doing here in Nigeria. Because they want to enter paradise. They are not sure where it's located. They want to shorten the lives, this one we have there. That is vicious. That is where religion is so, is so anti-human. And that trying to say a politics or political philosophy should be based on it, especially for African continent, where life is already nasty, brutish, and short due to lack of proper medical care, poverty, and all that, is for me trying to do damage to already a very bad situation. So for me, religion, bringing it into politics, is going to cause confusion. Like you said, many Kenyan Christians are not Christian. Who are there? In Nigeria, they will tell you many Muslims are not Muslims and all that. So at the end of the day, they will still tell you Muslims are in the majority, Christians are in the majority. There's a lot of confusion in your camp. Can you guys please take care of your own camp first before coming to talk about us? We want to make the best out of this life. We want a politics that will guarantee all the best that human beings can get. You can go to heaven, please. We are not coming with you. Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
No problem.
Please do. Go on.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to also ask maybe, sorry, Mystique. I just wanted to say maybe Mystique would be the last and then we could get into the final statements.
Sure. Mystique can go on.
My question is, Dr. you are against some parts of tribalism, right? Did I get that correct?
Yeah, what I said is that when you deploy the fact that you come from, you are Igbo, you now use it as a weapon, or you weaponize it against other human beings, it negates it. What I'm saying there is that tribalism is a way people organize themselves at a certain age and try to provide their self needs. But today, in a multi-ethnic, multi-tribal societies, tribalism can be used to exacerbate tension, to create confusion and divisiveness. That's my position.
Okay, so I would like to ask if you have the same view on discrimination.
Discrimination against who?
Just discrimination in general.
Yeah, well, the fact there is that you call it discrimination means it's not good. Discrimination on the basis of gender is not good because men and women are equal. And let me tell you, even going by the religious idea about, Charles was talking about the creation of Adam and Eve. Look, I was in the seminary for so many years, and they told us that Adam and Eve were not real human beings. So I don't know where Charles is coming from, whether you want to come from a real human being or a real natural being, or you want to come from a fictitious being invented by those who want to give the world a sense of a beginning. But let's leave that. So what I'm trying to say here now is that it is important we know discrimination, whether on the basis of race, sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity is wrong. You know why? Because it negates this idea that we are here as human beings and we have to make the best of this opportunity. And it makes it, it harms other people. And because it harms other people directly, it harms everybody indirectly. So if discrimination is said not to be good, why should anybody like it? Why should anybody like it? Because you might be the victim one day. Like now, some people will call me that I'm in the ethnic majority in Nigeria, but I'm in a minority because I'm an unbeliever, I'm an atheist, okay? So if you think discrimination is good because others are in the ethnic minority, I'm a minority and all that. So discrimination is not something anybody should like. Until you are a victim, you will now understand that it's not good, whether you are in the majority or in the minority.
Okay, can I there's you stated something while you are going back and forth with Charles about you mentioned countries like Tanzania, Senegal. So just like to state that I've just Googled to find if one is a Muslim majority, and it's did you know fact that Tanzania is a Christian majority?
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure. If you recall when I was saying it, I said I wasn't sure of Tanzania, but I said it there. But I know that Senegal is a Muslim, majority. And when Charles replied, Charles said that he didn't make that reference to make a Christian argument. He made that reference to make an imperialist about, the contact with Europe and all that argument. So what I wanted to say there is that I know that I don't know much about the Christian demographics in Tanzania, but I know that they have significant Muslim population and traditional population and all that. But I'll fact check that when we finish. But the point I wanted to make was that these countries with significant or sometimes Muslim majority populations, we can't use them to make a case for Christian political philosophy. That's it. Because even if, let's assume Tanzania is Christian majority, as you said, I mean, are they better off? Is that a role model every other person should follow? So what I'm saying here, what value is the Christian worldview bringing to the world of African politics? That's actually the point I wanted to make. Yeah, that was the point I wanted to make.
I think we could proceed to the final statement so that the stream does not go for too long. I don't know if you agree, Kevin.
Yes, I think since I think who started? I think it's Doc. I think yes, Doc started. I think we'll give you, Charles, to start. Then Doc finishes.
Yeah.
Charles, you can start with your final statements. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess I'll just take 5 minutes. So guys, thanks for coming again. The African Debates channel is trying to, have these conversations that we should be having, but we're not having. But just to go to my points. So you remember, like I have given a case that naturalism is not true. Naturalism cannot explain to us why we have a universe, why we live lives that have meaning, and why, we live life as if we were created for something, And to make matters worse, naturalism cannot even give us reasons for why we should have this objective moral value and duty to respect every human being. And so, I feel not only is it false, but it cannot help us with the issue of politics and tribalism. And so the case I have made is that Christianity explains why we have this universe, why we have design in something like, for example, ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which almost looks like a machine in and of itself in nanoscale. It explains why we have this moral law giver the evidence being the conscience that we have. The conscience shows that there's this objective moral value and duties, and it's like God's law is written in our hearts. And so there's this, and so like Christianity explains why the universe is the way it is and gives us a solution. Because we can't meet the standard is too high for us. To love people the way we should, we can't do it. Someone did that in our place. And then when we put our faith in him, our sin of tribalism and political hatred gets transferred to him, and his perfection gets transferred to us. That's why I made the case for how Christianity gives us a foundation for tribal unity and political harmony. On top of that, I didn't feel like objections that I raised were really well addressed. At least that's how I felt. There are issues to do with Adam and Eve, and I don't want to belabor that point too much, but I would encourage people to look into the sciences. There are people who are coming up with possibilities of an original couple being very recent, like this Joshua Swamidass with the genealogical Adam and Eve. And we are also having genetic entropy from John Sanford, which you guys should look up, John Sanford genetic entropy, which shows that most mutations seem to be deleterious. And so we need to have the origin of human population much closer to us. And so like, there's a lot of evidence pointing towards Christianity, but I think the major evidence, the Bible, which is being disparaged, seems to have legitimacy in terms of prophecy. For example, Isaiah 44, I was actually reading this earlier this week, whereby Cyrus is mentioned by name. And remember, the book of Isaiah is actually dated way before, it's actually supposed to have been written way before King Cyrus comes in the Persian Empire. So we find fulfilled prophecy, which is confirmed by a guy called Josephus, where he talks about how Cyrus saw his name in the Bible and was like eager to fulfill the prophecy. So we find the Bible historically is seen as actually having these fulfilled prophecies. And so we have reasons to believe Christianity is true and it is good. That's really actually my main argument today. Christianity is true and it is good. But now I've not seen any real objections. There's this issue about there being fake Christians. And I just said Jesus is the one who actually said that there are people who are fake. Not everyone who calls me Lord will enter the kingdom, but those who do the will of my Father. And Jesus is the standard of Christianity, not statisticians in Africa or in the world. And the fool says in his heart that there is no God. If I presented to you a well-designed computer software program in Python, you would eloquently say, wow, who came up with this program? Such an awesome design. Imagine our DNA is more complex than Python programming. So the way the Bible says the fool has said in his heart, there's no God. It's the same way I would say someone who looks at Python programming and says that, oh, that just magically appeared. Like, I think we need, that's what the Bible means. It's not saying that someone is like crazy. It's just saying that it's not a valid conclusion to see design and say, no designer. That's what it means. So like, I think maybe I could end there. There was this issue of Jesus never existing. And I'm not sure if Dr. Igwe knows, that's actually a fringe position that even many atheists now believe from a historical standpoint. There was a man named Jesus crucified during Pontius Pilate because of a lot of evidence from both religious and non-religious historians who are contemporaries or at least close to Jesus's contemporaries. So the issue of Jesus not existing is not really even a discussion in historiography. And that's probably a discussion for another day. And the issue of life being meaningless, that we should help everyone fulfill pleasure. Like, pleasure for what? Like, you could die today, like, and you know, there's some people who actually think it is pleasure to defile a child. Some people think it's pleasurable to take advantage of another tribe so that they can have more money. Some people think it's pleasurable. And like, for them, it works for them, you know, like if their political party takes advantage of another and it's pleasurable for them. So if we are talking about pleasure, who gets to decide which one is right? Christianity gets to say that there's an objective moral value and moral values and duties, but on atheism, we are left with ultimate meaninglessness because we are just meaningless molecules in motion. Maybe in the final statement, Dr. Igwe could show me how on atheism, we are not meaningless molecules in motion. But I want to rest my final statement there. And thanks, guys, for listening.
Thank you so much, Charles. Over to you, Dr. Leo.
Yes. Well, thank you, Charles. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, all those who signed in for this interaction. But I want to say this. Misty corrected me. I said something about Tanzania, and Misty corrected me. And I accepted the correction. And I've checked it. Accepted. But I want to tell you, you can't do this when it comes to what is written in the scriptures. Yes. I have never seen people who are so immune to correction. If you draw their attention to something that is mistaken in their beliefs or in their Bible, they become violent. Like now, Misty made this correction, I have accepted it. I've checked, I cross-checked. But if you look at the Bible and said, okay, but who is the father of Jesus? You know, a virgin, that's nonsense. Okay, how does a virgin conceive? They get angry. The next thing, they want to kill you. They want to, victimize you. And don't get me wrong, Charles. Look, what Muslims are doing, Christians do it in their own way. When you challenge their God, they get angry too, and they can victimize you in other ways. They may not beat you up physically. They may not, harm you physically, but they may find another way to sanction. What I'm saying there is that why is it that the religious worldview cannot admit of correction? But they're ready to correct others when they make mistakes. The Bible, the Quran, the scriptures, they're filled with errors, scientific, evident errors, misconceptions about life, about the geography, about astronomical beings. But when they correct others, they want us to accept it. Like now, I didn't say, okay, no, you have blasphemed. Who is driving the idea of blasphemy? It's religious people, because they want their error to become the truth, even when people can actually correct them. They don't want to be corrected. So that is why I'm saying, Misty, thank you for the correction. But I hope that when people also try to correct what they think is mistaken, either in the Bible or in the Quran or in the evangelical text, that they could take it in the same spirit. And that's exactly what takes me to, where lies our morality? You can see the morality here now. The morality is that we are here. We're trying to make sense of life. Yes, I don't have a sense if I have existed before. I don't know. Maybe, Charles, you can tell me where you were about 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago, even maybe when Christ was born, or according to you now. You can tell me where you were if you know. I don't know. Look at it. They have no clue. Where will I be when I die? I don't know. There is no evidence. My father passed away last week. I'm still waiting to hear from him, whether he's in heaven or in hell or on the road or hanging up somewhere or waiting to enter the paradise. I don't know. No signal. And here we are killing and beating ourselves, thinking about where we will be in the afterlife. For me, it is a waste of time when we have needs, immediate needs to attend to. So what drives our morality, what drives our sense of meaning is need. Yes. How do we make this life better? How do we make this life happier, more enjoyable? How do we make it, when you are talking about pleasure, you were talking about defiling people. Who is telling you that atheists said you should go ahead and defile people? Who told you that? And even if, don't quote me wrong, I want to get me clear here now. Even if you meet an atheist that tells you, go and defile. If I tell you to go and kill, will you kill? Don't you have a reason? Don't you have intelligence? Can't you make your own use of your intelligence? What I am as an atheist is that I make use of my intelligence, and I expect you to make use of my intelligence. So if somebody tells you to do something wrong, go and kill your child because it will please me as a sacrifice, you will say, why should I do that? You need to make use of your intelligence. And it is in making use of your intelligence that you can do that. And I want to also point out what you said about a case in the US where they said atheists were attacking people and all that. Just look. Do you know what they call the Crusades? Let me just give you the Crusades. Go and read it. Go and read the Inquisition, where the true unbelievers, heretics, to dogs and all that. If we are talking about committing crime, you cannot even, let me tell you, the crimes committed by Christians in the name of Christianity, they don't come any close. And you are talking about Kenya, you are talking about US. Why are you going very far? Why not talk about Kenya? Who are those shooting and killing? The terrorist attacks, who carried them out? Are they atheists or theists? Are they believers in God? So let us not just be trying to draw all these things. What I'm saying here is this, that what we are saying is that, you know, there's no evidence for this. You are moral giver. Morality comes from what? We are the moral givers. Yes, we human beings are the moral givers. Nobody give it. If you give it to me, let me tell you, Charles, if you give it to me, I will question it. Misty gave me the correction. I had to check. Maybe she's mistaken. I checked it and it corresponded. So make use of your mind. Make use of your intelligence. That your brain there is not for fancy. It is for you to use. It is for you to apply. It is for you to make the best of it. And if you are putting in place a politics for Africa, apply your brain. Don't use the intelligence or what is written thousands of years ago by ignorant people who didn't actually know how many, whether there are molecules or atoms, who didn't actually know whether there was a Mars or other planets. You want to use it to guide us today. You are moving us back. That politics is retrogressive. It's not good for Kenya. It's not good for Africa. And it's not good for the world. Thank you.
What a way to end the debate. So, I think I'd like first of all to thank everyone. First of all, the debaters, that is Charles and Dr. Igwe, for taking a time to have this conversation, especially as Kenya heads towards the election in a few days. I think it's just the other week. It's almost just a week and some few days to the Kenya elections. And I think it's a conversation that will continue to go on, and it's going to get thicker even as we head towards the election itself, and also as we await the election results, as we're going to see what does tribalism and politics, as well as the views of people within the Christianity, within secularism, and all those factions react to tribalism and politics. So I think if maybe Charles, if you have anything to close off before we end the stream, don't want to make it too long.
Or just maybe 5 seconds. Please like and subscribe. There's the YouTube page, African Debates. More content is coming soon. We'll be having almost every month a conversation dealing with African issues. So yeah, that's all. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
I guess we can end the live stream.
Then end it right now. Okay. Who